So here we are. We're recording now. All right. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Natives in America podcast. With me, as always, is Sky Antone. And
hey, what's up? What's up?
There he is. All right. And then I'm gonna do a little bit longer intro for tonight's guest. Tonight's guest has always been like a. That's the way I could describe him, as a second father to me. He's been there for a lot of early things in my life. Like, I met him through his son, because I was a kid way back when, and I went to go play with his son, and the whole second father thing is he's been there for a lot of firsts for me, a lot of manly firsts. I think he's come over and shown me how to drive. Like, he brought a gator over from the school, and he showed me how to, control my speed. He's taking me hunting, so I fired my first gun and went on my first hunting trip with this man. And then in high school, he showed me how to weld, work PVC, sweat copper, and thread steel pipe. So a lot of manly things, a lot of manly firsts. This is a manly man, and I'd just like to welcome him to the podcast. Everybody knows him as Mr. Wesch, and his name is Walter Wesch. So here he is, people.
Hey, Benji, that's a wonderful introduction. And I tell you what, you think of me as a second father, you're our second son. Good. And Deb and I will always think of you that way. As you were talking about some of those things, you remember a whole lot of memories of all those things came back to me. And that was nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to have you on. It's our pleasure. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of our listeners kind of feel the same way. And, I'm sure I'm not the only one. You've been with the school so long that I think you've shown a lot of young people how to live their life a little better and maybe do some of these incredible things that maybe at some point we had no clue how to do and never thought we would.
Well, I tell you what, it's nice that you say those things, and I've enjoyed my career out there. But the funny little thing about all of that is, in doing those things and helping people and teaching students, I get so much back out of it.
Good.
The relationships, the chance to do something meaningful. Yeah. When I started teaching, I was like, wow, I need a job. This is one. I can do this, or at least I think I can.
Yeah.
And it was about the money, because I had to make money, but as you get older, you look at your life and you don't measure it in things like money. How much money did I make? Did I win any awards? Was I recognized? You measure it by encounters like this and people that you've been fortunate enough to work with in your career, mm-hmm. and hearing how you made a difference, because that turns out to be really the most important thing, the chance to give back.
Oh, yeah. A quick example, one day I came home and we had a copper pipe that some people had added after they put an addition on our house, and it burst in the winter. And we didn't panic. We didn't have to call a plumber. I was like, you know what? I know how to sweat copper pipe, and it was thanks to you. And I went ahead and got all the tools together and fixed my own house.
All right. See, that's the kind of awards I'm talking about, because it's neat to hear those stories. And, teachers, one of our favorite things to tell you is, you need to learn this because you're at some point later in life you're going to need it. Yeah. And to be real honest, a lot of that we think it's true, but, I was a student too, and most of it wasn't true. Or at least I didn't recognize it as true. But hearing you say that, man, that makes me feel good.
Oh, yeah.
Because not only I knew that maybe at some point you'd need to do that, but more importantly is you realized it.
Oh, yeah.
And you were able to put it to use.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just that. I'm just saying that's a quick example off the top of my head, because you were a big influence in my life, as I'm sure you were to a lot of other students. Not just students, but I see you as family, and it's very cool to know you and to have known you and to be able to say that.
Well, and what goes around comes around, because I tell you what, for every student that says something like you just said about me making a difference in their life, there's been 2 or 3 people on the Tohono O'odham Nation that I've encountered who've made that kind of difference in my life. It isn't all about teachers give and students take. These are two-way relationships, and the chance to bond with students over a period of time. That's what I love about my job, is a lot of my students I'll have for 3 or 4 years, and the chance to watch them grow and develop. And I can remember some guys that graduated, I think they were the class of 19. There was Keaton Juan, Emerson Chico, and people in that class. And I remember they came to graduation. They were staging the seniors to get ready and walk out of my building. And they walked in there for the last time, and I said, you guys walked in here as boys, and you're walking out of here tonight as men. Nice. And the neat thing is being able to watch that change and that growth and that development.
Cool. That's real cool. Okay, so just so everybody knows how many years, let's start with education. How long have you been a teacher?
Well, that poster that was advertised in the parade a few weeks ago said 42, but I taught 40 years at Baboquivari High School. And it was important for me to do that. One of my first exposures to my profession was attending an ag teachers convention up in Flagstaff, and this was even before I started teaching. It was like 2 weeks after I signed my contract in 1981, and they were honoring a guy who taught 40 years.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, it'd be cool to do that. And I may have set, and later on I ignored a lot of goals in my life, but that's one that I followed through.
Nice.
And I decided, man, if you could do something for 40 years, that'd be good.
How does it feel to be on the other end of that, then?
How does it what?
How does it feel like have you had a moment to step back and think about that, like you made it, that time? How does it feel?
Yeah, I've had a lot of time to reflect. The nice thing about the pandemic is it kind of slowed things down to where I could think about those things, as opposed to if we were still on campus and going at the usual hectic pace. In some ways, teaching through the laptop has been harder and it was more time-consuming, but the pace allowed you to really think about those things. And, I think about it, and I guess I have just a profound sense of gratitude that I was allowed to do this, that it worked out, that I was able to make a difference in people's lives. And most of all, what makes me feel good is people saying, we don't want you to retire, we can't do without you. Now, I know that's not true. Oh. They'll do without me just fine, but to hear people say they wish I was staying, that means a huge amount to me, because it means that whatever I was doing, whatever I was given, was appreciated, and that I've made a difference, rather than, I wondered why you taught so long. I thought you would have tried before that. That's kind of what you expect. So no, and it isn't so much pride in what I've accomplished, it's gratitude for what I've been allowed to do.
Yeah. You've done a lot, like more. I think you're one of those teachers that did more than you had to, and it was greatly appreciated. I always felt like you were there, you didn't just, the clock hits 5 or 4 and you just head out, all right, I'm done. I feel like you stuck around and kind of went that extra mile and even reached out to students and, gave that support more than most.
Yeah, I'll take that. And there were some that did it more than me, but I think an honest assessment is, I did it. I don't know about more than most, but for a longer period of time. I've known some really outstanding, dynamic teachers that have worked out there, and they've been there 2, 3, 4 years, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And I've always said, rather than 3 years of brilliance, give me 20 years of pretty good. Because continuity is huge. I think that the one thing that the community, the parents, the students, the elders appreciated from me wasn't brilliance and hard work and dedication and all that. Is that I wanted to be there and I stayed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they knew me.
Yeah. Yeah, because you were there. You were on the scene.
For better or for worse. And sometimes it was for worse because toward the latter part of my career, I'd get freshmen, and as I'm getting to know them and I talk to them, I go, yeah, I don't really want to be here, but my mom said I had to take your class. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you give it a week, and then if you don't like it, I'll work with Mom and see if we can get you in the class you do like.
Yeah.
You know, but the idea that students would be sent to me because their parents had a good experience with me, that's the kind of thing you look for.
Absolutely.
And I'll say something for the O'odham community and all the parents I served. People out there, the O'odham people, are incredibly loyal and supporting once they've learned that they can trust you.
Yes.
I mean, just huge. And that's always made me feel good. I've had parents say, you know, we're glad you're our kid's teacher because we know you, we trust you.
Yeah.
And they aren't saying that lightly. So I've always felt myself, compared to some of my peers at other schools outside of an indigenous community, I felt incredibly lucky because if you're there for a while, you get that kind of loyalty.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You paid your dues for sure, definitely.
Well, and people recognize that and appreciate it. I've always, you don't think about this when you're a younger teacher. You realize that once you become a parent, you realize, look, when I'm asking a parent to let their kids go on an FFA trip, I'm asking them to place 100% trust in me that I'm going to do right by their child and by their family and by them. And you don't realize what a big ask that is until you have children of your own, and you realize, you know, I would really look at who I'm trusting with my child. Mm-hmm. So I need to realize I'm asking these parents to place the same trust in me.
Very nice.
Wow.
All right. So I don't know if Sky has a question. I'm just going to keep rattling off questions.
Well, I appreciate you, coming on today and, sort of kind of reflecting on your nose at Bible. Is there any, if you could kind of go back and redo it over, is there anything maybe you would change or maybe something you would do differently, now that you kind of out of that box, or not box, but time frame, where now it's like you can reflect on it now?
Yeah, what would I change if I had to, maybe 3 magic wishes where I could remake parts of my career?
Sure.
Early in my career, I'll be honest, I wasn't committed to staying out there for 40 years. When I first came out to sales, my plan was I'm going to work 3 years and I'm going to move on. Because I knew there had been several people who taught agriculture at Baboquivari, and the longest one stayed 6 years, and I replaced him.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, I'll work 3 years and then I'll move on. And that didn't happen because I got to liking it. And also, let's just be honest, inertia. Mm-hmm. It's easier to keep doing what you're doing than to change what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And about the time, it was probably about 1990, our son Jay had been born, and then our daughter Kenna, and Deb and I were talking about long term, what do we want to do?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, maybe we need to move on. And I applied for a couple of jobs, and I didn't get them. I was second. There were several people that applied for both of them. They were popular jobs, and I came in number 2 at both of them.
Wow.
And then I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to stay here. And I guess if I had a do-over, I don't think I realized how good I had it early in my career.
Wow.
And it's not that I didn't want to work in a Native or reservation community. It was, there's got to be something even better out there. Yeah. You know, that the grass is greener someplace else.
Yeah, it always is.
And I guess if I had a do-over, it would be to realize my grass was pretty darn green from the get-go. And part of what opened that up to me was about the time I decided, well, maybe I will stay here. I got to listen to what some of my other peers around the state were saying, and I had 3 other ag teachers telling me, if you ever leave Bobo, give me a call. I might want to have a go at it.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened my eyes up, saying, you know, hey, maybe there's a place to be. And about that time, another really good job opened up, and the principal called me and said, I heard you might be interested in a change of scenery.
Oh, man.
And I said, thanks for calling. I'm good where I'm at. But I suggested to him who he should hire, and he did, and that guy worked there 20 years.
Good.
Wow. So I guess just my do-over would be realize how good I had it from the beginning.
Hindsight's 20/20 for sure.
Sure it is.
I guess, I mean, as a teacher or like a teacher coming out of college, is that something that is taught, like, or is even in your learning? Like, are we told to stay somewhere for a long period of time, or are we kind of told to venture out and try as many as you can? You know what I mean? There's benefits to both.
Well, when I was trained as a teacher at the University of Arizona, they weren't really training us to have a career mindset. They were trying to give us the tools to go out and be successful. And then if you decided to be successful and stay, that's fine. If you wanted to move on and try different things, that was fine too. I think longevity was probably, though, more the norm. People didn't change schools a whole lot back then.
Yeah.
In my first 10 years of teaching, pretty soon if you're active in our profession, you learn who all the teachers that are teaching ag, and at the time there was about 80 of us all over the state. We all knew each other. And there wasn't a lot of turnover, and to be real honest, the U of A would train 8 people a year for 6 jobs. Wow. So there was competition. Now it's the other way around. We replace about 20% of our membership a year, and there's always openings.
Wow.
Yeah, we can't fill them all. So I guess one of my things I'm most grateful also for is that I did it when I did it.
Yeah.
If I'd have started teaching in the 50s and taught through the 90s, that might have been different. Frankly, I don't have the energy or the intelligence to handle it now. The technology has gotten so complicated.
Yeah.
And teaching is different now because back when I started, if you were moderately competent, the principal pretty much left you alone. And the reason is, the principal usually was some guy who'd been an English teacher or a math teacher in his teaching career, and he didn't know how to do what you did, and he was a little afraid of some of the things you did. And if you wanted to run the principal off when he came out to visit, you took him down to the corrals, or you went out in the welding shop, and pretty soon they learned, maybe I'll just leave this guy alone.
Yeah.
But it's not that way now. Teaching is much more of a science and less of an art. And I'm not saying that in the frame of, gee, the good old days. We're better teachers now because of that. But it's harder.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you said you went to the U of A. Have you always? I actually don't know this about you. Are you from Arizona originally?
I'm an Arizona native.
Nice.
I'm kind of an unusual Arizonan. I'm not, of course, I'm not indigenous. You know, I'm Milgon. but most Arizonans came here from someplace else.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was born here. I'm the oldest of 4 children. We were born in Casa Grande.
Wow.
My parents are Arizona natives, and my grandparents came to Arizona a long time ago. My mother's family, they've been here since the 1800s, and my dad's family came here about 90 years ago. Nice. So we're old-time Arizonans. So yeah, I'm just down the road, and it's kind of interesting. One of the things I've always found interesting about Baboquivari is we attract teachers with such a wide variety of life experiences. You know, I've worked with people who traveled on camel caravans through the Mongolian desert, and they taught at foreign schools in Singapore and served in the Peace Corps. Hell, I'm from the next county. You know, I'm a Western Pinal County boy, Stanfield and Casa Grande. I've always joked that I could walk from anywhere I've ever lived to any other place I've ever lived in 3 days. You know, I've not lived in any place else. You know, if there's not mesquite trees and saguaros, it wouldn't feel like home.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's
very cool. And you can't really say that about every teacher here because of what you just said. They're from everywhere.
Yeah, and that's good, though. You know, if everybody was from Pinal County like me, we'd be pretty boring.
Okay, let's go even earlier. As a kid, did you always want to be a teacher? Like, what were your original, like, I don't know how far back you want to go, but like when I was a kid and I was playing with your son, we were always like, we want to be cops and firemen.
Yep.
What was your original game plan? Did you have one?
It was not to be a teacher.
Uh-huh.
In fact, if you'd have probably asked me, what do you not want to be, I'd have said a teacher. First off, teachers were all women.
Uh-huh.
And not that I have anything against women. I married one.
Uh-huh.
My mother was a woman.
Uh-huh.
But I just didn't see it as something for me, at least not as a kid. I guess if I wanted to do anything, I had very realistic career goals. I was going to be a professional baseball player.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to be a center fielder. I was going to be able to hit for power and steal bases, and I was going to end up in the Hall of Fame after winning 10 World Series. You know, pretty realistic career goal there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Needless to say, when I couldn't make the freshman baseball team at Casa Grande High School, it became pretty obvious that I was not going to be a professional baseball player. But something else happened that same year. I got into the agriculture class at Casa Grande. Now, I'd been in 4-H, which is a rural youth development organization with at that time, a pretty heavy agriculture emphasis. And we lived on a feedlot in Stanfield until I was a freshman in high school. And my grandfathers both had farmed. So that was kind of in my blood, and I thought I could do that. But once I got in the ag program, the thing that kept me going in high school, and I wasn't a popular kid in high school, but the ag program and my ag teacher, Everett Rhodes, was my teacher. He was a young man at the time. He'd been teaching a year and a half when I started. And he made a difference in my life. And the important thing was, it wasn't what he taught me. I don't know that I could remember 3 things he ever taught me to do or facts he taught me. Mm-hmm. But the role model he was, and the example he set, and the life lessons I learned, that's what made a difference. And so I got to thinking, you know, maybe I could do that.
What, teach?
Yeah, maybe I could. And then I got lucky because he hired me to work part-time for 2 years at the school while I went to Central Arizona College. I'd go to class at Central Arizona in the morning and then go work at the high school ag department. And at Central Arizona College, the late Dean Merrill was his name. He was the agriculture teacher there. And he was that second important person in my life that pointed me this direction. Just an amazing man, a lot different than Everett Rhodes. Everett Rhodes was very quiet, shy. Dean Merrill knew everybody in the county and real outgoing. And he had that special gift that he was one of those rare people that could make you feel like you were the most important person in his world. And then 3 minutes later, you could watch him make somebody else feel like they were the most important person. And it didn't make you feel less. It made you feel better.
Wow.
And those two gentlemen were huge influences. So then I go down to the U of A, and both of them kind of pointed me that direction. And Dean Merrill even went down to Tucson with me and set me up with the right people at the U of A.
Wow.
So then I'm going to the U of A, and I had planned to graduate in 1980. And this is a lesson that I learned, although I didn't learn it at that time. It took me many years to realize that sometimes things happen because they're supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'd have been a better student, Benji, you'd have never known me. The reason is, I was supposed to graduate in 1980.
Uh-huh.
But I was in college on the 5-year plan. They had some really weird rules at the U of A. There was one of them about if you quit going to class halfway through the semester, they'll fail you.
Oh.
Did not know that, you know. And I wasn't a real serious student, so I ended up having to go back for a year.
Wow.
But that's how I ended up at Babo. Because I did my student teaching. The end part of teacher training for every teacher that goes through a university program is you do an internship called student teaching. And I got assigned to do my student teaching in Baboquivari.
Wow.
And it was a great experience because I met the third important person that made me a teacher. And that was Frank Molina. He was the agriculture teacher at Baboquivari at the time. And working with him was a wonderful experience. And he was very kind and patient and trusting, and he saw what I could become rather than what I was at the time, which was pretty green. And that was just a great experience. But instead of graduating after student teaching, I had to go back to the U of A for a year.
Wow.
And so I went back to U of A, retook all those classes that I quit going to because I had to pass them this time.
Uh-huh.
And I graduated. And I needed a job. And back then, they trained more ag teachers than there were openings. So I thought, I'm going to have to hustle my butt. And I'm going to have to get a job. Yeah. So I looked around, and Douglas needed a teacher, clear down by the Mexican border, Cochise County. So I went down there, and I interviewed. And I didn't really like the community, but the principal was pretty cool. And by the time I got home, he called and said, will you take the job? Uh-huh. We like you. Yeah. I thought, damn, I got a job.
Yeah.
But then I thought, my dad had told me, if they offer you a job, don't take it right away. Ask for 48 hours to think it over, make sure you've thought it through, because once you pick, you got to stick, at least for the year.
Once you pick, you got to stick.
So I said, this was on a Friday, and I said, can I call you Monday morning and give you my answer? He said, either way, you promise you call? I said, I will call you. So, it was a long weekend, because I was just flat broke, back home, living with my parents. And Sunday night, I get a call from sales. And it's not Mr. Molina, it's another teacher there that I knew. And he said, Frank Molina's leaving, the position's open, and
wow.
Frank's recommended you. The problem is, the board wouldn't meet and approve you until Tuesday. Oh, and I had the day before, Monday, I had to give Douglas an answer.
Wow.
And I said, so is this job mine in Babo for sure? And the guy said, well, it's pretty sure. I said, oh, pretty sure, huh? So I said, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I hung up, and I told my dad, and he said, so somebody's offered you a job, and you're going to turn him down for a maybe job? And I said, well, yeah, Dad, that's what I'm doing. He goes, okay.
Yeah. And
I tell you what, I called Douglas, and I told him, and they were very gracious about it. but it was a long day and a half waiting to hear the word from sales. And they called me up Wednesday morning and said, "The job's yours. Will you take it?" "Oh, yes, sir."
Yes, sir.
But the point that this incredibly long story is illustrating is if I'd have done a better job and done what I was supposed to do, I'd have had my career someplace else because there was no job opening in Babo in 1980.
Wow.
So sometimes things happen because they're supposed to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I keep hearing all these stories, and they keep making me go, wow, I almost didn't know you. And it's kind of freaky because you, like I said, you were a big influence in my life. And a lot of other people, I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this when as you're telling this story. It's incredible.
But I'll look at it the other way, though, Benji. Let's be honest here. Maybe if I'd have taken a different job in 1980 and ended up teaching at Coolidge or something, somebody else would have gone to Babo in 1981. It might have been a better experience. So
well,
maybe you missed out on meeting someone even that you really, really, really would have liked. So we don't know what you can't tell woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Well,
I'm just glad it worked out the way it did.
Yeah. Definitely. So when you went to the U of A, was your major going to be teaching, or was it kind of something else and teaching was your fallback? Like, was it like, all right, I'm going to be a teacher, and that's what you went to the U of A for?
It is. I spent 2 years at Central Arizona College. I didn't graduate from there because I wasn't as serious as I should have been, but I transferred enough credits that I could have gone 2 more years at U of A. So I get down to U of A. By then, I pretty well picked ag education. I'm going to be an ag teacher. I'd like to say I was serious about it, but hell, I was 20 years old. There was a lot of other things that interested me more than school did, so I was kind of an indifferent student.
Uh-huh.
I've always been lucky in my life. I'm not the smartest guy in the room usually, but I'm one of the smarter guys, and I catch on quick and I test well, which means I can kind of half-ass it my way through school and still do okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, for anybody who listens to this, I'm not recommending that as a plan for getting through either high school or college.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't taking it seriously, but I was trained for that. I knew that at some point I was going to quit having to be a kid and go become an adult and support myself and all that, yada, yada, yada. But the seriousness didn't happen until all of a sudden I graduated from college. Now, got to get that job now. So I end up down in sales.
Wow.
And I'm kind of leading the conversation there because I'd imagine that's where we're going to go next.
Oh, yeah.
I get down there, and if you ever heard the term too dumb to be scared, that's kind of how I was. I wasn't overconfident. I was just clueless. I was as well prepared as you could prepare somebody, but I'm still a 22-year-old kid, and I don't know a whole lot. But again, like I have so many times in my career, really, really wonderful people entered my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool.
I keep thinking it's incredible you already had a direction at 20. Like, I'm thinking about me at 20, and it's like way off with very, very little direction. I kind of knew what I was capable of by that time, but I didn't quite know what I wanted. And to hear that you've gone in all this direction like you had, you seem focused. It's pretty impressive.
Sometimes what appears to be determination and perseverance ends up being cluelessness and inertia too. I like to say that I charted out my career plan and then executed, and in hindsight that's how I'd like it to look, but in reality a lot of what happened just happened.
Wow.
I know people that were more ambitious than me at the time that taught 7 or 8 years and then decided, no, I want to be a businessman and work for myself and start their own business. And the ones I know of that did that, it worked for a while, but in the end, they wish they'd stayed doing what they were doing. I didn't do that, maybe because I didn't have as much ambition. I don't know. You know, we love to, when you get to be at the position in life that I'm at, you love to look back on your life and think, I'm in a good position, and it's because I made intelligent decisions and worked hard. But in reality, I made intelligent decisions, I worked hard, I had a heck of a lot of breaks, and a heck of a lot of people helping me. And some of them were just pure blind luck.
Wow.
I'll give you an example, Jay. You know, our son Jay, and he's doing well now, but coming out of high school, he had 3 years after high school that were not a success by any means. He had 6 or 7 different jobs, and he just wasn't going anywhere. And finally, we told him, look, try the military.
Yeah.
And it clicked for him. And it was good for us because instead of having to pay for a college education, the Navy paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, isn't something I can take credit for. It's just a matter of good fortune.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I want to make a pitch right here. I assume that in this podcast we're kind of telling a story, but I want to kind of venture out here a little bit and make a plug for something.
Okay.
One of the things I've learned over the years is you can never place too much value on the idea of identifying and working with mentors, people to help shape and guide your career.
So
I've been incredibly lucky. I talked about 3 mentors so far. My high school ag teacher, my ag teacher at CAC, and Frank Molina, who I student taught with at U of A. And I'm a firm believer in mentorship. In fact, in my professional association, I started a mentorship program for new ag teachers statewide about 20 years ago, and it's still going strong now. Somebody else runs it.
Cool.
But I ran it for 10 years, and it was important. But I want to point out that part of the reason I was successful in sales right off, and I tell you what, when I went out there, I thought, well, I'm going to try this for a year. And there were people I talked to later, professors from the U of A and some of the older teachers, and they were like, dude, we're surprised you survived the first week. But I had strong mentorship out there. There's a gentleman named Bruce Donahue. Bruce Donahue is probably 85 years old now. He was my father's age, and he was the head maintenance man at Baboquivari when I went out there. And I can't tell you how important he was for me for my first 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
He was my father on campus.
Uh-huh.
He knew a lot about agriculture. He was a rancher. Maintenance man for the school district there. He could do everything. He knew everybody. And he taught me so many things without ever sitting me down and saying, no, I need to teach you this, or I need to tell you this.
Yeah.
You know, and that was huge. Without him, I wouldn't have made it. The late Gene Tashquit, who was the agriculture extension person out at the livestock complex that bears his name now, was another one of those people. A man even older than my father, who really helped me and did everything I asked for and volunteered things for me, and just huge. So mentorships, people listening to this, a lot of times we don't want to ask for help, and especially when we're younger, we don't want to ask older, more established people for help. But in any career or profession or job, most of the time, those older people want to help younger people.
Yeah.
And I've tried to do that in my career to give back to the profession and to the people who've helped me by helping people coming along.
Nice.
So there's my plug for something I believe strongly in, which is mentorships and relationships. Developing those people. I've still got mentors that I use that have been mentoring me my entire career.
Wow.
And then I got to give a plug. There's no way I'm going to get through this podcast without recognizing probably the most important person outside of my wife for my success, and that's my partner, Mike Juan.
Yeah.
I talked to him earlier about realizing in my life all of the success and good fortune I've had. And working with that man for 40 years has probably been number one.
Wow.
Mike's, I've been very lucky in that I've had the privilege of working with somebody who's a better person than I am. He's as smart as I am. He's more patient than I am. He's wiser than I am. And he's certainly more modest than I am. But it just, I can't tell you the 1,000 ways he's helped me. In fact, we talk about it. We don't joke because we feel it very sincerely that we're brothers. He's my brother. Mm-hmm. We're kind of, we joke sometimes about, it's kind of the work-wife thing. We talk sometimes like an old married couple to where he'll start a sentence and I'll finish it because I know what he's going to say, and we can have shorthand conversations where we say things like, "Oh yeah, you remember that time that guy?" And then the other person will laugh because we know what he's talking about, even though he hasn't said what he's talking about.
Yeah.
It's just been such a blessing. I've been really pleased that Mike's going to stay on with the ag program.
That's good. Yeah.
We thought that we were both afraid that they were going to shut down the ag program, but with the pandemic and it's hurting school budgets and enrollments dropping. In fact, we started planning on folding the whole thing up, and I finally got the nerve to ask the principal, Tanya Sudan. I said, what are the chances of saving the ag program? She goes, "What do you mean? We're not getting rid of it. We're going to replace you." And I said, "Well, it'd be nice if you could keep Mike's position, too, because by then Mike had transferred to maintenance."
Wow.
And she said, "Of course we're keeping his position. But Mike's going to stay on and work with a new teacher," and I'm just really, really pleased about that.
Good. Yeah. They need some kind of carryover to definitely teach the next person. That's great.
Yeah. And then I'm excited about the new person coming in, Jordan Milsna. Her background's completely different than mine. I think her emphasis in the program and some of the ways she's going to teach it would be completely different than mine, and I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
One of the Sky asked me earlier, and I totally flubbed this answer about if you could have any do-overs. I forgot probably the most important do-over.
What's that?
I was terrified when I first started teaching of changing anything.
Oh.
I thought Frank Molina knew everything in the world. He was an experienced teacher, and if he did it this way, if he had the classroom set up this way, that's the way it should be. Yeah. And it took 3 years before I realized, hey, this is my deal now. I can change things.
Yeah.
And I changed some things, and it's good. And she's not going to be afraid to do that right away, and I'm glad.
Good. Run their own show. I like that. All right.
Yeah, because I told her coming in, we had a long meeting a couple of weeks ago. She's up in northern New Mexico, but we had a long virtual meeting, and I said, hey, come July 6th when your contract starts, you the boss. Mm-hmm. I have no authority. I'll help you any way I can, and I'm going to be officially mentoring her, but mentoring is helping, and I told her, I said, if you don't change some things, I'm going to be disappointed because there's some things that ought to change. So the program's in good hands. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, that's real good. All right, so So you kind of already mentioned it, but I kind of want to go a little deeper. Was there any, did you have any, like, resistance when you first came down? Was there any, like, hard times that kind of, you know, that kind of kept you from settling in when you first came down, like either with the students or the teacher association around you? Was there any time where you felt very resistant in the beginning, coming down to the reservation?
Well, again, remember when I talked about being too dumb to be scared?
Yeah.
Not too much, but one thing that I did, and I didn't really get resistance from, I just kind of got a bunch of nothing, was I thought if you could appeal to students about if you learn these things, if you get involved in our program and you get an FFA and develop your leadership skills, you could become a great leader of your people, and how wonderful would that be, and all these noble-sounding things. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking to 14 and 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
And they kind of look at me very patiently, and they were probably thinking, what the hell is he talking about? Mm-hmm. And I did, you know, it was just classic dumb, but I thought that you could appeal to the noble sentiment in kids about when you're an adult, what a great thing you could become. And I guess it wasn't, if it was resistance, it was passive resistance. Uh-huh. But I kept trying to approach students from where I wanted them to be and not realizing I got to approach them where they're at right now.
Yeah.
Now think about it. When you were 15, were you interested in becoming a leader and helping your people? No. I certainly wasn't. I was interested in some things, and because I don't know who will listen to this podcast, I'm sure not going to talk about them right now, but I was 15, I had other things on my mind.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can think of a few things. All right. When you think about the students, would you say there's any kind of difference that you might notice that you may have noticed, or that you feel teachers who are coming new to the reservation should know about the students? Do you think there's a difference in the native students and teachers or students anywhere else?
You know, I'll have people I meet from other schools who've never taught a significant number of indigenous or native students, and they'll say to me, what's it like teaching down there?
Yeah.
And I'll say to them, compared to what?
Yeah.
It's all I know. I think that at first I saw differences. I thought the kids were a lot shyer, not willing to speak up, and yeah, it was probably that way at first, but they weren't nervous because they didn't know me, and they probably picked up on some nervousness on my part because I didn't know them, and I was trying to fake it until I could make it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I saw the differences more, and now the older I get, the more I see the similarities. You know, students are students. Yes, our students are unique, but every other student is unique in some way too. Mm-hmm. And I guess that when I first started teaching, I saw O'odham students, and I saw Anglo students, and I saw Hispanic students. But then once you got to know students, you saw all the individualism and all the differences from one person to another person. And I quit looking at students so monolithically as all being the same. Mm-hmm. Because at first all I saw were the differences. I'm Anglo and they're not. They're O'odham and I'm not. And now I see so many parallels. I'll see kids coming in. I'm going, yeah, it's kind of like I was when I was that age. But now I can see students as individuals when early in your career, that's a little harder to see. And part of that may not be so much early in my career, but I was just awful young. See, when I first started teaching, I was 22. It was 4 years into my career before I was no longer the youngest teacher on campus.
Wow.
So I was just, that's partly why I was able to work 40 years. As I started, I was still a pup, still a kid.
Yeah, sounds like it. Man. All right.
So you kind of grew up at Bible, too.
Yeah. And, talking about getting to know students now, later in my career, not only did I see students as individuals, I could see a kid coming in, and I look at him and I say, I swear that's a Pablo.
Uh-huh.
A kid looks like some of the Lopez's I know.
Mm-hmm.
Because you start, and sure enough, I'd be like, when we get talking, I say, well, who's your mom? Okay, I know you, and your uncle is,
Yeah.
And that's something else that becomes incredibly rewarding because you get some freshman that comes in and it just blows their mind.
Yeah.
You know my mom? I said, yeah, I know your grandparents too.
Wow.
It kind of freaks them out and it kind of gets fun.
Yeah.
What do you, I have a question, or maybe something you've told, like when you say you got the new teacher starting, or like any teacher that has no knowledge of Baboquivari or the res or just, sales, like what would you tell them, I guess, if they were just asking curiously, what is it like to be there? How would you paint that picture?
Yeah, I got a good answer for this one. About 15 years ago, almost 20 years ago, I became pretty good friends with a guy named John Carlisle. He's the vice chair of Santa Fe District. He worked for our school district for a number of years. Now, we're pretty good friends. They said to me one day, he goes, Wesch, you know why people out here like you? And I said, I don't know, because they're very forgiving and kind. He goes, well, yeah, we are, but people here like you because you don't ask a lot of questions.
Oh.
And I've seen it over and over and over again. You get new teachers come in, and you start listening to them, and they'll come up to an O'odham teacher or a student or a parent, and basically, and I'm going to kind of perform this as a caricature of what they really do, but it's like, oh, I'm so excited. Tell me all about your culture and your people and your language and what's sacred to you and all these,
Okay.
I was never brave enough to do that. I always felt like that was an intrusion, and I'm kind of shy anyway. And what Jerry was telling me was, we like it that you don't get nosy like that.
Yeah.
You listen, you don't ask a bunch of questions. And I had a guy named Joe Antone. He's from Big Fields. He worked as the elementary school head of maintenance, and he and I got along pretty good. We became pretty good friends, and he goes, and we were talking about another teacher who'd been at the school for a few years when I got there, and he was really pushy that way, and he said, the problem with that guy is he wants to be one of us. Mm-hmm. It's not enough for him just to be here. He wants to be one of us. You don't need to be, you can't be one of us. Just be you. And that's what he was telling me. Yeah. And it really sunk in because when he said it, I could see it about the way he was describing this other teacher.
Yeah.
So I guess if I had any advice for a new teacher coming in, that would be listen, learn, listen to when they have cultural presentations, when they take you on a field trip and take you around the nation, go. Don't ask a lot of questions. Just listen, and you'll learn more that way. Because if people think you should know something, you'll learn it.
Yeah.
And there's questions, and Mike and I, like I said, we're close like brothers. And there's stuff I'm curious about, but I don't ask him, because if he wanted me to know, he'd tell me.
Yeah.
And if I asked him, he might tell me, but that'd be like, that to me, that's almost like violating the terms of our relationship.
Yeah.
You know, because I try to put myself in his shoes. We've got all these non-O'odham out here. And there's always going to be non-O'odham coming onto our land.
Yeah.
But there's things that we still have to hold as only ours that shouldn't be shared. Or if they're shared, they should be shared on our terms, not on their terms. So I try to be respectful of that.
That's really well said. I appreciate that. I especially appreciate that now, you know, if a young teacher's hearing this, that they can get that idea. I really like that you put it in those terms.
Yeah, and well, thank you. And it's hard because a really good teacher tries to learn as much about their students, their school, their community they serve. So it's almost like you're supposed to be nosy and ask as much as you can. And it's kind of hard. In fact, the better a teacher's going to be, the more likely they're going to want, their first inclination will be to act that way.
Yeah.
And it would be really hard to, okay, I just need to be patient and I need to listen and learn as we go and not try to learn on demand. You know, I'd say kind of, and the best thing to get that way, I'll use an example just from my own family. I lost my mom last fall, but my dad's still alive and doing well. And I love going up and spending time with him because we'll get to talking and he tells stories from the old days, but they don't come up on demand.
Yeah.
I can't sit him down and say, Dad, tell me about this or tell me about that, because, you know, humans' minds don't work that way.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll have a conversation and it'll prompt a story, and then the conversation will take a different turn. It'll prompt another story. And that's kind of the way some of the best learning about the O'odham people and the hymn dog is to just participate in conversations and listen and not try to direct it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. I got another question for you here.
Sure.
This is about experiences, kind of where I'm taking this now. I kind of want to make it two separate questions, but
okay.
Did you ever have an experience that you would say was unique to, like it wouldn't have happened to you anywhere else except on the reservation? Have you, like, whether it's teaching or living, because I know you lived down there for a good chunk of your time down there, and you've been down there so long, there's no way you didn't interact with people. Do you have an experience that you think was unique about being on the reservation? Anything that comes to mind that, you know, probably couldn't have happened anywhere else?
Well, I'll tell a story, and the story is true. There'll be no names.
Okay.
I've been teaching about 3 or 4 years, and this would have been maybe about 85 or 86. There was at the time we had a daycare center on campus.
Uh-huh.
And we had several teen moms.
Yeah.
And one of them lived over in the rentals.
Uh-huh.
And she needed to go home, and she was in my class at the time, so I said, well, I'll just take her home. She said, I need to pick up my baby. So we drove over to the main part of the campus. She picked up her baby, and we're in the agriculture pickup. And she's sitting on the passenger seat, and all of a sudden I look over, and she's breastfeeding.
Uh-huh.
And to go from the high school to where she lived, you had to make 3 right-hand turns.
Yeah.
And I made all 3 of those right-hand turns looking at the opposite way out of the left window. And that was just like, oh, only here, because she didn't take anything out of this. So what she did, I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, I'm trying to think of other stories. I don't know that anything comes to mind right off. But again, it's kind of like I described with my dad.
Yeah.
Now that you asked that question, 5 minutes later, I'm going to go, wait, stop. Now, I know, here's what I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So,
all right, feel free.
Let's see what comes up.
Here's the second part that's kind of, it's still a unique experience. Was there ever a time where you felt like quitting? Was there ever a time where stuff got hard? Like, can you tell us about that? Where, you know, like you've done the VOAG. You know, you are teaching in the class. You guys had the same building with Mr. Brooks. Was there ever an interaction or an experience like for my mom about the time she left? There was a big change where schooling started focusing on standardized testing, and it just kind of turned her off to the whole experience. I mean, she stuck around a while longer, but it left her with a sour taste in her mouth. Was there ever a time where you either wanted to quit or you just like, you know, you got pushed to your limit?
Oh, yeah. It was about 2006.
Okay.
I've been teaching for 25 years. Benji, you remember the Walkers?
Yes.
Mike Ryan was the superintendent. He and the Walkers came when I first started. 1981, we all came in together. Mike Ryan was the superintendent for 15 years. He passed away. I only had 2 principals, Virgil for 3 years and then Sharon for the next 12. So 15 years into my career, I've had lots of stability, lots of support. And again, when I was talking earlier about mentors, the Walkers were huge for me. Virgil Walker, as my first year principal, again, he saw what I could become rather than what I was. And Sharon, the same way. The two of them taught me what teaching was really all about.
Yeah.
But then they left, and our school district, frankly, went downhill. We had a couple of superintendents that were not right for the community and were more interested in looking good than doing good, in my opinion.
Wow.
We had a lot of principals at one point in my career, and this was probably 1999 to 2009. We had 10 principals in 10 years.
Whoa.
And that doesn't count me 3 different times in that 10-year span as the interim principal.
Wow.
Just when they didn't have anybody. So, I mean, the place was a mess, and we weren't as good as we'd been. And about 2006, I was like, enough of this. I'm going to get my 30 years because your pension as a teacher is based partly on how many years you teach, and if you teach a full 30 years, you're at the highest multiplier in the formula. So I thought, I'm going to stick it out for 30 years, and I am so out of this place. And then again, one of the things I've talked about is just the good fortune I've had in my career. We got a superintendent in who turned this place around.
Wow.
And it made all the difference in the world. Albert Sakaros was his name. He was superintendent for about 5 years. And he affected an immediate turnaround. It's one of those things, it's like when a team hires the right coach.
Yeah.
Everything started getting better all at once. And it wasn't that he had some magic formula. He was the hardest working person in the district and didn't even expect you to work as hard as him. He just expected you to work harder than you'd been working. He had very high standards, and after about a year of this, I was like, I don't think I want to retire now. Things are going better. And his 5 years were like years 30 through 34 for me, and it was just huge. I was like, man, I can keep doing this now.
Wow.
Again, the right people at the right time in your career, because at the way it was going, I was like, I like the people out here, but the system is just so messed up.
Yeah.
And it kind of exactly like you're talking about how it was for your mom, because it was during that period that she retired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got pretty ugly. Okay. All right, Sky, do you have any more questions before I go forward here? Sky? Do you have any questions to add real quick?
Hello?
Yeah.
On my phone's having...
Oh, okay.
No, it keeps clicking off on the Bluetooth.
Oh,
the headphones.
Maybe your headphones are dying. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so I'll throw another question out. During this time, in your total time, you mentioned you started a mentorship program.
Yes.
It sounded like it was kind of like a pet project or something for you.
Well, it was something I saw that being helpful for me. And one of our big problems in Arizona, the Arizona Ag Teachers Association, is kind of like the problem we have with teachers themselves. You can get good teachers, but keeping them.
Yeah.
And so many teachers leave the profession, and it does no good to train up a new teacher if you can't keep them in the profession.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you have children, you don't want your child taught by every year by a teacher for whom it's the first year. You know, you want some experience and continuity there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been important for me. And plus, again, the chance to give back. That was something I was interested in, and I thought it was something I could do to give back. Right now I'm serving my profession another way. We have a statewide think tank for ag education called Team Ag Ed. And it's the ag teachers, University of Arizona Department of Education, and other stakeholders like the Farm Bureau. And we have a foundation that raises financial support. And we have industry partners. And I'm one of the 3 leaders of Team Ag Ed. And that was something that was kind of a retirement project for me that I've undertaken for the next 3 years, again, to help give back to the profession.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like with a school district, I've told them, I said, look, I'm retired now, but if there's something I can help with, it's like I was the CTE director, I was the administrator for career and technical education programs like agri-science and automotive, and I said I can still do some of the things that need to be done, especially since you've got a new superintendent coming in, and he's probably going to have enough to worry about without figuring out who's going to do that. You know, so I want to stay connected with the school district. I know other people, they've retired and they've just literally walked away.
Yeah.
My roots are too deep there. I can't do that. I even signed up last week to become a substitute teacher. And they let the substitute program in Arizona now is run by a private company that contracts substitutes to all the schools.
Wow.
And they wanted me to list the 5 districts that I would sub for. I just put Bobo because if I don't want to be a sub, but I want to stay useful, and you want to be relevant. So,
yeah.
And to be real honest, I don't know if I want to sub, but if they need me, I will.
Yeah. I'm sure people will be happy to have you come back.
Yeah, well, the other nice thing about being a substitute is it's not like a year contract. I go out there, sub a couple days, I don't like who I'm subbing for. It's like, tomorrow, gee, I think I'm busy tomorrow. Can't do it. I don't want to do that, but it'd be nice to know I could.
Wow. Okay. All right. So along that same line, do you have any other projects? Did you start any other projects along the way?
Well, not really. I'm doing this, like I said, mentoring my replacement, Jordan. That's through a program with the Joint Technological Education District team at JTED. I'll actually be a JTED employee. So they'll pay me to go help her, and so I'm doing that, but I don't even know how long that's going to take, because if you're helping someone, it's going to be on their terms.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I can't go in and say, okay, sit down, I'm going to school you now about how to be an ag teacher.
Yeah.
It's going to be like, What questions do you have? What do you need help with? What can I do?
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I don't plan on really working during retirement. I don't want to sit around the house all day.
Nice.
I have a question.
Sure.
Since retirement has officially started, what is the biggest maybe misconception or you thought it was going to be that way, then it's really this other way, or I guess how you saw it before you retired versus now you're retired? Is there anything where I was like, hey, this is not what I thought, or this is something I didn't expect, but it's cool?
Good question. Not so much how is it different now that I thought it would be. How has it evolved? Because I've been looking at this retirement. This is a planned retirement, so I've kind of thought of how I want it to be, and how I decided I wanted it to be is a lot different than how I thought it would be when I first started teaching. When I was in my 20s, I thought, man, when I retire, I'll just sit around, do whatever I want, do nothing when I want. Now, when you retire, people don't retire that way anymore. It's kind of a phased retirement to where, I still want to be involved. I still want to do things. So I'm not going to sit around the house all day. That's the surest way I know of to die early. And you got to stay active, but it's going to be on my terms now.
Right.
That's why this mentorship thing is wonderful for me, because it's a 1 or 2 day commitment a week. There's some flex in it. The subbing would be great if they need me a little bit now and then. But it's kind of like now I get to call the shots, because one of the reasons we work full-time is we've got to make full-time money. But once you retire and you're collecting a pension, that pressure's taken away, and now I can do things that don't have to be about the money.
Yeah.
It's like being one of the 3 leaders of the Team Ag Ed I described. It's a several days a year commitment to meetings and planning. There's no money involved, and that's great. I couldn't have afforded to do a lot of that when I had to make a full-time living, but now I could do these things and not have to worry about do I get paid for them. So I guess it's the idea that retirement isn't like going from all work to no work. It's going from a lot of work to maybe less work, but more work I can control.
Okay.
Nice. All right. I tend to go to like any last words type deal, but before we go there, I want to go back a little, and maybe we kind of covered this, maybe we haven't. I'm hoping you haven't. Was there any things that you felt was like your greatest? Is there anything like off the top of your mind? Like I know I'm kind of forcing it here, but was there ever a time where you're like, wow, this is one of my greatest successes? Like not just in your career, but in your life. Is there anything you want to talk about that? Like anything that was like your greatest success, your greatest gift back?
My greatest success? I'm talking to him.
Yeah.
No, Benji, honestly, it's people like you. That's what you're proud of. That's why the parade, I wish you could have been there. It was cool. And you did. You called me later and we talked about it. Things like that. That's what you're proud of. And it's not that you're proud. It's not like you beat yourself on the chest and say, yeah, Benjamin Juan, man, he is who he is because I made him that way. No. It's that Benjamin Juan. I'm just so happy to have been a part of that.
Yeah.
That's where and I don't know, I guess I'm not the kind of guy that looks back and said, that's the part of my career I'm the proudest of. Because to me, I've come around lately in my life to being very interested in philosophy.
Okay.
and reading about philosophy and the secret to happiness. And I've come to learn that there's two secrets to being happy. Mm-hmm. And the first one is gratitude. Being grateful for what you have. Seeing your glass as half full, not half empty.
Yeah.
And I think I've talked a lot in this time we've had together about things I'm grateful for, and especially people I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
And then the second half of the secret to happiness is service to others.
Yeah. I like that.
And I've been incredibly blessed in that most people who make a living and they don't have the good fortune to make that living directly in service to others as teachers do. And I'm not saying teachers are better because of that, but we're most fortunate in that we get to make our living in service to others. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be what you do with your career. One thing I am proud of that has nothing to do with my career is for 9 years I was active in an organization in Tucson called Challenger Little League. And it was Little League for handicapped kids. Cool. And Kenna played in it. And I coached for 8 years, and I was vice president of the league for 7 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And it took up, from late February through June, it took up a lot of time. During that, for about a 3-month span, it would take up every Saturday, almost all day. But it was worth it because I was helping other people.
Yeah.
Service to your profession, service to your family, to your community. You know, I think to be happy in life, you've got to be doing things that help other people. You know, it's like you think about it. When have you ever done something nice for somebody when you didn't have to do it? Even if it was you see somebody with a flat tire on the side of the road and you stop and change the tire for them.
Yeah.
You know, and they're grateful, but when you do something like that, don't you drive away feeling good?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm not at the point in my life where I act all proud of what I've done. It's more what I'm grateful for that I had the chance to do.
Yeah.
You know, if I hadn't gone to sales, I'd have had different experiences. And I probably would have had a career I was proud of and would have made a difference in people's lives. But I'm just as happy as all get out that I got to do it where I got to do it. Hmm. And I've had unique, and I probably don't realize how fortunate I am because with, you know, people, it's kind of like when you go someplace, if you went to New York City, I look around and go, wow, this place is amazing. Well, not to New Yorkers, it's all they know.
Yeah.
You know, and because the Tohono O'odham Nation that was my career, I'm not sure I'm in a position to appreciate just how unique and wonderful a situation as it's been. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a story here. This kind of, I finally clicked on me, one of those only in Babo stories you asked me about earlier when I was drawing blanks. I was talking about Bruce Donahue, and I used to hang out a lot with a high school maintenance crew when I could. And I remember one time they were doing something, and Stanley Patricio was one of the maintenance men. Uh-huh. And the assistant superintendent had been on the whole crew about getting something fixed, and finally they got it done, and Stanley goes, well, there it is. It's good enough for the Indians, so it ought to be good enough for the white man. And then he looks up at me and goes, oh, Walt, I forgot you were there. I thought you were one of us. And I really appreciated it because, to be real honest, by then I thought I was one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely been indoctrinated for sure.
Yeah, well, accepted for sure, I tell you. Yeah. It felt good.
That's nice. All right. Unless guys got something, I got another question.
Okay.
Let's go with your question, man.
All right. So every day, as far as I know, every day you've been driving back and forth between Tucson and Babo. Anything wild ever happen on that trip?
Oh, gee, I don't know about wild. I've run into some weather sometimes. I remember one day driving back, it was probably February, and all through from about the Santa Rosa Ranch turnoff all the way down to San Pedro, it had snowed. And it was snowing then.
Yeah.
And this is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just gorgeous.
Wow.
And I can remember another time on that same stretch of road, I got down just before where the Border Patrol checkpoint was, and it was raining and hailing so hard, I was afraid to keep driving. I was afraid to stop.
Yeah.
And the water, I don't know if you guys reckon, right where the reservation boundary is, there's a red metal gate.
Uh-huh.
And I got to the red gate, and the water is running across the road.
Wow.
It's running off from the north side across to the south, because there's a pretty good slope there, and I'm driving through water about 6 inches deep.
Jesus.
And that was kind of wild. I remember another time I had picked up kids in Tucson. This is in July, and I'd taken them to catch the bus Monday morning to go to FFA camp, and this was Friday evening. And I picked them up in Tucson, driven them back out to Sal's, got everybody reconnected with their family. And I'm driving back, and it's raining cats and dogs. And I'm driving this little black car I'm driving at the time, little Ford Escort. And went around the curve at Fresno there, about milepost 120.
Wow.
And I'm going faster than I should, because it's late Friday night, and I'm tired. And I'm driving along, and I'm kind of, you know how there's a white stripe along the edge of the road?
Yeah.
And I'm driving along, kind of following that white stripe, staying in between them. All of a sudden, the white stripe disappears.
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, what the splash? And I hit where the wash is running so full it's just over the road.
Uh-oh.
And I hit that. I learned a valuable lesson. When the white line disappears, you in trouble.
Yeah.
But I hit that thing, and that car went this way and that way. Unfortunately, when it came out, it was still going on the road.
Right.
I remember one time driving back from Sal's, and it was at night. These headlights are coming toward me, and they're in my lane. So I pulled off the road and stopped, and they just kept on going. They were driving in the wrong lane.
Jeez.
And I don't know what that was all about. I guess, when I think about all the times I've driven on Highway 86, I'm kind of glad I survived it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just when I'm about to finish driving it, they got to go make it all better. Now it's nice and wide and everything, and
yeah.
It wasn't always that way.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, this is kind of what I bring up to everybody towards the end here, and it's I kind of want to break it down into 3 things here.
Okay.
Any last words for, and you're gonna have to separate them just so people can kind of go, oh, I fit into that group. Oh, I fit into this group. Do you have any last words for the students? Any last words for your teachers that you worked with? And any last words for your family, that have been on this journey with you the whole time?
Okay, for my students, I want to say thank you for the opportunity, and just remember, I'm going to be gone, but somebody else is coming in, and they aren't going to be me. They're going to be different than me, but different is still good. Mm-hmm. Different could be better. And just remember, I won't be there, but it means that you get to know 2 people instead of just one. Mm. And that's good. For my fellow teachers, I've been incredibly blessed in my career to work with some top-notch educators. And the people I'm leaving right now that are still teaching at Babo are the best group I've worked with. our school's in good hands because of the work that you're going to continue to do. My work with the school district is largely over, but I'm content because I know the good work that we were all doing is going to continue.
Nice.
And for my own family, for my wife and for my kids, I want to say thank you for letting me do this. My job's been at times pretty all-encompassing, and there's things that I may have missed out when I was doing that. So I want to thank you for the patience and the support.
Nice. Because
I was doing the job, but it was affecting all of us, and it's nice to know I had such strong backing.
Nice.
And I want to say one last thing to the O'odham community in general, and particularly to the elders. When I came to your community, I didn't ask permission to be there, I just came. And yeah, the school board hired me, but that's not the same as the community and elders saying that was all right. But I was always accepted, and I always felt valued. And I'm very grateful for that, and I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I'm in a little bit of tears here. I'm glad you've been a part of my life. I just wanted to say that.
But just remember, that's not over. Students will quit being my students, but you won't quit being my second son.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I just wanted to put this out there. I had known you for many years before I became one of your students. And one of my memories of that, one of the first days I knew I was going to be in your class, I came in and I think I had an attitude or a chip on my shoulder, and I tried to act out, and just true to your form, you kind of, you called me out in front of everybody, but at the same time you kind of reeled me back in. And there were a bunch of times like that where, I'm a young, angry kid, and you reeled me back in. And I always appreciated that, and I'm sure there's other students that had. So I wanted to say I was always grateful for that. You've always seemed to me to be a very solid-minded individual, and I always appreciated that.
Well, thank you. But, as teachers, one of the things we learn is, kids act like kids. We expect you to act like kids.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if you teach for very long, you realize it isn't the students that frustrate you, because students are supposed to act like that. It's the adults that drive you crazy. They're supposed to know better.
Yeah. Well, all right.
And I tell you one other thing that, along kind of that same vein, I've had students for 4 years that drove me crazy. And then as soon as that relationship was over, we were friends then, because now it was no longer teacher and student.
Yeah.
and that's very gratifying too. It's kind of like they felt like they had to act out because that was the way the role they saw for a student.
Yeah.
It's like they had to push back against me.
Yeah.
But as soon as we didn't have that dynamic going on, hey, we could be friends now.
Good. Well, I think we can leave it there. I'm really glad you came on. I appreciate it, and I hope you'd maybe come back and give us an update sometime.
I tell you what, you know how to get a hold of me. And I'll be real honest with you. I wasn't so sure about this whole podcast thing, but I've just had a heck of a time. I've enjoyed this.
Good.
This has been all right. So, if ever you want to do something like this again, just say the word.
Okay, great. And sorry, go ahead, Sky.
No, we didn't get to talk about aliens, but maybe next time.
Yeah.
But okay. I just wanted to say, Wesch, you're hearing a lot of your background. A lot of us didn't know all that. You're born and raised from Arizona, and I think as a native student, someone we identify as maybe outside, we kind of have this perception of who they are, and you did the hard part and do the time to where people got to know you, and I just think that's awesome because, one, we have a teacher that we can depend on, and then on your end, your purpose is fully full range doing something, and all the students that participated in anything you were a part of, that's a lot of kids that you've impacted. And even for myself, that I've actually never had your class, so I don't have a lot of stories, but I did go to Bible, and I did know that you were a teacher that was there for the long haul, and I think that was something that students kind of recognize throughout the whole educational system, where some teachers stay and some teachers they're not gonna stay, and so I appreciate you putting in all that time, because you say it could have been anywhere else and the reward would have been just maybe even nicer, but we left out and got you, so that's just, it's good to have this all documented, because I'm pretty sure we have a lot of your students that can tell some stories, even with the FFA and other projects that you did, because I know you did a lot of projects at the school, and it's just been so long I can't remember. But I appreciate that you came today, and like you said, you want to come back and talk about retirement some more. I think that's something too that as students we kind of gotta maybe get a better understanding of, is what it means to have a career and then get your retirement. So yeah, a lot of learning. Even though you're retired, you're still teaching. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's funny, and as you talk about how you were never one of my students, one of the things I've done over the years, and I don't know how it happens, some of the students that I have some of the best relationships were never in my class. So we encountered each other on campus through different things. I'd handled money for the senior class. I remember one year the senior treasurer and I, she'd never been in my class. We became very good friends and very close, And so we always have to remind ourselves, I'm everybody's teacher, even if you're not in my class.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay.
Again, guys, thank you very much. This has been just a wonderful experience. Kind of like my whole career.
Yeah. Well, it's our pleasure to have you here. I'm glad you joined us tonight.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. This has been another great episode, and we really enjoyed recording it. So have a good night.
Peace.
All right. I'm hitting the button.